You're a lovely girl, aren't you?
Yeah.
Happy little soul. So, yeah, tell me about your super speedy labour and
Yes,
birth.
it was very super speedy. So my water broke at 6:30, and in that classic way that women do, I thought, oh God, I've wet myself. But the night before, I had read, if your waters break, put a pad in your knickers and put a towel underneath you, and then go back to sleep. So I did, and that will indicate whether they're carrying on breaking. And when I woke up again 2 hours later, it was definitely my waters that were breaking. So then I told my husband, and he was rather shocked because he's a teacher. It was his first day of summer holidays. He finished on Friday. I'd left for maternity leave on Friday.
So you were just 37 weeks, were
you?
Yeah,
and went into labour on the Monday. And then my waters broke. They didn't break in one big gush. They broke all day up until 9:30 at night. And so I was in a bit of not a panic, but I had planned to have 2 weeks relaxing,
where's my relaxing
listening to my MP3s, reading my hypnobirthing book. And so I did some cramming that day and some sleeping, lots of sleeping, which was really good. And I made Henry go and have a sleep as well, because although it can be 1 to 7 days after your waters break, I wanted us to be as sort of have as much energy as possible.
Yeah.
And then I can't really remember what time, but it was sort of late morning that I suppose I had a contraction, like Well, I kept calling them cramps because they were so fine. They were absolutely fine, and I was doing lots of breathing, and in the book it says, although they are manageable, start practicing your breathing straight away. So I was doing that, and then we were walking around. I spent all day walking around, and I was quite physical when I wasn't sleeping, because we were clearing out the room that she was then going to be born in. And at about 9:30, at night, my friend came round unexpectedly, and we were watching the Tour de France highlights. And she brought round a TENS machine for me, which I had no plan on using, but she didn't know that. It was just really sweet of her. And I was there, and I was breathing, and my contractions were happening, surges were happening maybe once every, I don't know, they were quite regular then. Like, they suddenly sped up, so maybe once every 5 minutes. And she said to me, Sarah, I think you're going to have a baby tonight. And I said, no, I don't think so. Probably be the next day sometime. Definitely the next day, but not tonight. Anyway, I said to Henry, and let's get the pool up. Get it half filled, which we'd been told anecdotally, again, fill it half with cold water before you go to bed, and then you just bring it to temperature when you're ready. So we did that, and I'm really pleased we did that, because that took 2.5 hours just to fill it half full.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it wasn't a particularly big pool, but coming out of the kitchen tap, and
Yeah, it depends on your water pressure in your area, doesn't it?
Exactly. So had we left it until later, I would never have got in it in time. And and then we were packing our hospital bag, because we hadn't done that either, and I was sort of running around getting things. And
you were planning a home birth, but that was your hospital bag in case of transfer.
Yeah, because you never know, do you? And I even said to Henry, no, we'll get all the other stuff tomorrow. We'll drive down to Y, go to the pharmacy, get the other bits, because we were missing some bits and bobs that I thought I might need. So I still, even at 10:30, I didn't think I was having a baby that night. And anyway, the surges really slowed down because I was distracted, I think. And so I said to Henry, look, I'm not going to carry on packing my t-shirts and everything. I'm going to go to bed, and I'm going to have a nice early night and just concentrate. And anyway, I slept from 10:30 until midnight, with the surges sort of waking me up, but I was going back to sleep. Not a problem. And I think they were coming maybe once every half an hour, maybe once every 15 minutes. So it was, at no point did I have regular surges at all. They were just, like I say, like 9:30, they were sort of every 4 to 5 minutes. Maybe even less at that point. And then I got a bit distracted, and then they slowed down, and then they were like once every 15 minutes. And from about midnight, they started waking me up, and so I was lying there and I was breathing through it, and Henry was asleep, breathing through it, and I still kept thinking, oh, these are quite manageable, this is alright. And at 1:30, then they kept me awake, and again I was breathing through it, but at this point I was now like on my hands and knees for some of them, because I was, just trying to manage
just felt
them
right.
It felt right, and just managing them as well as possible. Still at this point it was all absolutely fine. Henry was still asleep, and then at 2:00 in the morning, and I went to the loo a lot. I just had to be on the toilet. I felt the need. Every time I had a surge, I then went to the loo. Didn't necessarily have a wee, but it was just the right place to be for me. And then at 2:00 I had this real surge, and I thought, right, okay, I'm going to try and time them now. So I had one, and then I had one about 15 minutes later, and then I had quite a big one, and that was 2 minutes later. And then they just came every 2 minutes after that.
So suddenly picked up.
And
really
it just
quickly.
suddenly, there was no pattern at all. And at 2:00 I walked in. I had a big surge. I thought, okay, I'm going to wake Henry up now. Walked into to where he was sleeping, because he was sleeping separately, because we'd made that decision that it would be too disruptive. And I had another surge as I walked in, and I said, Henry, I think I need to get in the pool now. And he, poor boy, he was like, oh, right, he was fast asleep.
Yeah, so it's suddenly woken up to that.
Yeah, and so I woke him up at 2:00, and she was born at 2:45. And so within that 45-minute period, he had got up, phoned the midwife, because I hadn't done it before, because I just didn't think she was going to come then. The first thing they did was tell him off. Honestly, I couldn't believe
That
it.
doesn't necessarily help.
It
does
was so unhelpful. They said, why didn't you phone us before? And he was like, my wife didn't tell me to phone you before.
I was asleep.
Yeah. Anyway, so I went to the toilet. He helped me to the toilet, and at that point I was sick, and I had a big poo, a big wee, and a big contraction all at the same time. And from then on, it was like, that was it. It was happening. So that was about 2:20, and I said to him, can you put me down? I've really got to get into the water. So by this time he had started filling it up with hot water. I mean, he was so amazing, honestly, and so I think utterly empowered by the hypnobirthing, and really, although he has said to me subsequently he was panicked, he was totally calm on the outside. To me, he looked like he knew exactly what he was doing. It was a bit unfortunate that I gave him 45 minutes warning. And in that time, you had to get a midwife there and get the pool warmed up and get me in it. And
well, you managed to get 2 out of 3, didn't you?
Yeah.
The pool warmed up, got you in it. You didn't get the midwife there.
He did, yeah. And so I said I really need to get in the pool after I'd had this big sort of evacuation. I said, I really need to get in the pool. I just want to get in the pool. Even at that point, I thought, right, I've got another 6 hours in front of me, but I'm going to get in the pool now because it feels right. He put me on the birthing pool so he could go back and ring. I think the phone rang. I think the midwife came back to us, and he left me on the birthing pool, but I couldn't stay on it, on the birthing ball, and but I had to get in the pool. So I got myself in the pool, and as I got in, it was like a trigger. And as I got in, I thought, oh, this is gonna be brilliant. I can relax for a few hours. But as I got in, it was like a trigger, you know, and I had this huge animal surge. I mean, it wasn't me. It was absolutely my body doing
primal.
It. Completely primal, and it didn't last. You know, it was fine. It was absolutely fine. I did have a shout, but it was you know that
primal
shout. Yeah, and it was like a warrior. You know, just like. Argh! And I'd sort of positioned myself in the wrong way, so between then and the next surge, I changed myself around and I said, Henry, you know, no, I didn't even shout for him. He was on the phone to the midwife at the time. And then I had this next surge. And Jackie, I swear to God, even at this next surge, I didn't think she was coming. Halfway through the surge, her head came out. And I was like, what? I mean, this surge was, it was really powerful. It was really strong. But, you know, I just thought, okay, this is all right. This is fine. I'm going to have to do this for a few hours now, because that's what you are told.
That's what you do.
Is what will happen. And that's going to be fine. And so I had this second surge, and I was thinking, in my head, I was thinking, okay, this is manageable. This is okay. And halfway through it, her head came out. And I will never forget that feeling. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And so then I was like, Henry, her head's come out. And he ran downstairs, and he was still...
Go again now. Yeah, we're okay, we're going again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we held her together, and that was lovely, because she was absolutely wide awake. I mean, she was... In hindsight, I wish we'd videoed it. And we did talk about it that day, but we both thought, you know, just in case. Anyway, she was wide awake, eyes open, perfect little conical head, you know, covered in the vernix. I mean, absolutely thick, because she was 3 weeks early.
Yes,
so she was absolutely thick with it. And then she started opening her mouth. And we thought, okay, well, we'll take her out of the water at that point, because she was really like this. And then she started mouthing like that. We took her out and lifted her up. And that was funny as well, because that was a little bit like a switch. So she'd gone from being in me to being in the lovely water. And we took her out of the water, and she just went, like that. So she'd been completely active in the water. And then kind of like went floppy. And so we gave her a rub, and, you know... at this point, the midwife phoned back, so Henry answered the phone, because I've asked him about this subsequently, and he said he just felt like probably there would be someone helpful at the end of the phone. So they said give her a good rub and, you know, get her to, you know, wake up. They said to Henry, is she crying? But she's a hypnobirthing baby, so she didn't make a sound. And he said, yeah, and he said no, she isn't, but she's a hypno baby, so, you know, she's not going to cry. But she didn't make a sound, not a peep. And then one really good thing the midwife told us, she was very pale, of course, and she was quite floppy. She was fine, but she was, you know, a little bit floppy. And they said to us, milk the cord. And we did that, and it was miraculous. It was literally like someone had pumped... Well, we'd pumped blood into her, and she went from being kind of white and a bit blue to being pink and rosy and lovely. And I had a very short cord, very short, only literally about that long.
Gosh,
yeah, I know. And so I actually couldn't really get her onto my chest. So Henry then had to pail a bit of water out, and I put her on my stomach when I could. And let her find, you know, my nipple, which she did. Yeah, which she did, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And then we did that on the next feed as well, which was a long time after she'd been born, about an hour and a half after she'd been born. And then I sat with her there for about another 20 minutes, And unfortunately, if you don't get a midwife there, they automatically call paramedics. So then they turned up, and I felt really bad about that actually, because, you know, I just thought, oh, they're just going to hang around. And then I was I had exactly what I knew I would have, which was stage fright. Because I was so anxious about them now being lots of people in the room. And they were amazed, they couldn't believe it. Both of them had never seen a hypnobirth before, and said how unusual a home birth is as well. And couldn't believe how well I looked. And I felt amazing, I have to say.
Full of oxytocin.
I felt absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't feel knackered at all, because it hadn't been knackering, it had been really manageable.
And empowering.
And totally empowering, yeah. I mean, if I tell you, that day, I literally said to Henry, right, let's have another one. When can I do it again? I want to do it again. I felt like a warrior. I felt absolutely amazing. And like, I could do it again whenever I wanted to. It was wonderful.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
And that's
wonderful.
how it should be, isn't it?
Yeah.
However birth is, whether it's quick or long or at home or in hospital or birthing, it should be empowering. It should make you feel amazing. It should make you feel
and it makes
like a
me
warrior,
feel
and it should be primal.
Yeah, it makes me feel quite emotional for women who have babies and then say, oh God, I can't do it again. Because honestly, the cave woman in me immediately was like, I'm so ready to do this again. That day, which I feel like must be nature's way of, you know, we're supposed to keep reproducing, aren't we? And I wanted to do it again. I just absolutely was ready, because it felt
so wonderful.
So wonderful.
It's that cocktail of hormones that are designed to make you feel fantastic.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And as I say, I skipped around for like 3 weeks on just this endorphin high. And I'd read a lot about, you have this hormone dip after 3 days where you can feel quite emotional and maybe feel a bit depressed as well. And I just didn't have that at all. And I think it's because the endorphins that were just rampaging around my body sort of compensated for it.
Yeah.
And we had a lovely time. And Henry cut the cord. But as he said, after delivering your baby, cutting the cord. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll cut the cord. And the midwife was lovely, and she came, and everyone just thought, you know, said they couldn't believe how well I was and happy. The placenta took 2 hours to come out after that, but that was because I'd lost concentration.
Yeah, and then lots of people around, paramedics
lots of
there,
people around, and actually it came out in the toilet, and I resisted for ages having the injection, which actually in hindsight she'd had about 40 minutes on the cord before it was cut, so she had a nice long time, and that's really the only reason to avoid, well, I don't know, I just didn't want to have the injection. I wanted it to be done myself, but the paramedics won't leave unless it comes out. So, oh God, I mean, talk about pressure. And I went for a walk around the garden.
But of course you're now effectively labouring against the clock, just the same as you don't want to do with your baby and you don't want to do with your placenta, do you?
Exactly.
You got a time limit on you now.
Yeah. And actually, it was, in a way, it was quite good, because I now know for a fact that if I had gone for any other birth, it would have, I think I would have, you know, for the fact that the placenta wouldn't come out.
Yeah, you saw how it happened to your placenta. And that might have happened with your baby.
Yeah.
Or would have happened.
So I think hypnobirthing for me was absolutely the way forward, and a home birth. And you know, my first baby at home is unheard of almost, other than hypno babies.
Yeah. There's plenty, but in the general population it's not common.
Yeah.
And at the start of the classes, you were saying you had been advised, or it was certainly strongly suggested, that you go for a C-section.
Yeah.
Because of some special circumstances.
Yeah. So I'd had all this surgery when I was a baby, and had always been aware that I might not be able to have a natural birth because of it, because of what it could potentially do to my bladder and my pelvic floor. And yeah, through having these classes, and I was very anxious when I first came and felt very nervous and, you know, apprehensive about what might happen. And by the time we finished, I was just utterly empowered. And now, you know, my friend...
Yes, who's starting classes next week.
Yeah, and I said to her, and she really wants a home birth, and I said to her, you absolutely have to have these classes because they are so empowering. They are so empowering. You know, Henry and I both walked out after the last class and I was just ready. I was so ready. And then listened to the MP3 every night and Henry knew what to do and he was so calm and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing and it's entirely because and now we've got this lovely calm baby.
She is gorgeous, isn't she? I'm going to need a cuddle now, aren't I? Are you ready for a cuddle, Phoebe?
Yeah.
Are you ready for a cuddle?
Oh, gorgeous. Yeah.